handling calls to abandoned buildings like this one the same way you would a call to any other structure that has an open door or has an incident going on inside of it or around it. You're probably making some critical safety mistakes. Today we're going to look at some of the safety concerns involved for public safety personnel of all stripes when dealing with long abandoned buildings and some of the ways we can try to mitigate those concerns. Stick around, this one could save you. Alright man, take a seat, buckle up. Ordinarily we'd start with orientation of the car here, but we got calls pending and we got to get to them. So, we're rolling. We're going to have to learn on the way. Alright, today I'm going to be talking about abandoned buildings and some of the problems and safety concerns that we deal with abandoned buildings. I'm also going to look at some ways and some equipment that we can use to mitigate those safety concerns. Now, when I talk about abandoned buildings, I don't mean a house that someone's just moved out of. I mean a building or house that has been left unoccupied for a rather long period of time. Now, to set the stage for this, I went to an abandoned house that I was aware of that had most of the problems that we're going to discuss here. And I took some video of it to kind of give you a visual aid, and partially because most people wouldn't believe that these things all occur in one building or that these were all real things unless they've had to go to these places. I want to show you this before you have to go to these places so that you can mitigate some of the problems that you can run into when you find yourself in a situation where you have to deal with or enter an abandoned house. Here's a good example of a house you wouldn't want to be going inside of because of the structural integrity of the house. You can see how the walls have already rotted through. If you got walls rotted through, water seeps down inside and starts taking the structure of the house out. See right here, there's a big hole right in there. It's an enormous hole you can actually see through. You can see we've got a hole all the way through the structure on the top floor. There's the window that used to be in it, what's left of it. Windows that are all open. The front door itself is not secure. Front door itself is not secure. I don't know if you can see that. As you can see all the way through that side door, up the stairs. You see the holes through the floor. Holding apart. Basement here. Entryway to the basement. Easy for animals to get in and out. I'm sure that's good for it. There's another unsecured door. Take a look at this. These stairs here. These stairs are fantastic. Look at this. All the boards are missing off of them. Take a look at that. You get a couple guys up on this porch. Fall right through. Well, everything's overgrown. Serious concern if you're chasing someone through here or someone hides back here in debris. Slip and fall with your pistol out, accidentally hit the trigger. That'd be fun. Look at all the debris in the backyard down here. Garage completely unsecured. Side door gone. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get through the bush myself. Overhead garage door gone completely. I'm actually surprised the garage is still standing given the condition of the house. So another thing about abandoned buildings, the steps, what's left of them. Get two guys up on this porch. Might not, a couple guys up on this porch and they might not make it back down again. You can see the condition of the inside here. See that? It's an actual hole in the floor. Hoping that comes out. Trying just not to get myself hurt. You can see the condition of the inside of the building. The floors fall right through the crawl space. Right through the crawl space. Press board floor, multiple layers, but it's rusted all. It's rotted all the way through. Electrical connection. Hopefully it's off, but you can never be guaranteed in a building like this. You see black mold here. Delightful. Furniture out on the front lawn. Good place for people to hide. A lot of guys don't want to touch that. That's one of the more reasons that gloves are important. See somebody running from felony offense of some type. Flip that couch a little bit, hide under it. Guys just walk right past, don't even think about it. It's no good. That's the delightful abandoned houses that you'll find around. You'd be surprised. You start searching in most towns, and you'll find something, maybe not this bad, but it'll have one of the inherent features of this. You'll start to have water go through. You'll have flipped over couches on the front lawn. You'll have kicked in doors, open windows to the basement, garages that are ready to fall down, things like that. You'd be surprised how many houses like this have holes through the floor. Like this one, I've got some still pictures because the video isn't coming out really great. When I try to poke my head inside the door to take some video, but there's pictures of it that I'm going to have on here. It's really rough inside. You could fall. I'm afraid to even step foot inside because I'd probably fall right through the floor. If not fall through one of the holes just because I didn't see it backed into it or something. Now that we've seen that, we're going to look at some of the physical considerations that we saw in that video. The first one that we're going to look at is the bad floors, bad porch, bad walls aspect of abandoned houses and abandoned structures entirely. Even buildings that are brick tend to have problems with water seepage, and water seepage causes damage to wood structures especially, but long term it can have problems with metal structures as well. So when a building goes abandoned, people stop doing maintenance to it. And simple things that ordinarily, if you owned a house or you owned a building, you would take care of right away, like problems with a leaky roof, tend to not get taken care of at all. So if there was a problem with the house when the people left, which generally there is, because the reason it's abandoned is because nobody wants it anymore, and they likely haven't been doing maintenance in a while, the problems get worse and worse. So a small leak in a roof starts coming down the walls into the superstructure of the house and starts rotting it away, and that's where you get the holes through the wall, holes through the windows, windows falling out of the frame because the frames have rotted away, falling down on the ground. You get the porches where a porch, every once in a while, if you own a house, every once in a while you notice you have to replace a board on a wooden porch because they'll start rotting through because they sit outside. When people stop doing that, porches very quickly, over the course of a couple of years, just start falling down. So when you approach an abandoned house, the one thing that you want to worry about right up front with it is the condition of the exterior of the house and whether it's even safe to go inside at all. One thing you have to worry about, as you can see up here, from a different house that I went to try to find these characteristics, it was a much better example of clutter around the outside of a house. You have to worry about tripping and falling. A lot of places have a policy or procedure or just kind of a way we do things where when you're searching an abandoned house, you get a call to one, you walk around with your pistol out. And this isn't always the best way to handle this situation. You're walking around with your pistol out, regardless of where you put your trigger finger, there's a possibility if you trip and fall that finger could end up in the trigger guard. So we have to be careful when we're walking around just on the outside of an abandoned house or an abandoned property of any type, that we're not tripping and falling over the things that are strewn all about it. You can see in here, they've got cinder blocks and just garbage all over the place. Now this gets worse when you have long grass in the yards around the house and when you have snow, heavy snow around the house, because it makes it harder to see the things that you could trip and fall over. Also, you can cause ankle injuries and toe injuries and things like that if you're not wearing the proper types of footwear. So the first thing we're going to talk about is getting proper footwear when you're working in patrol, whether you work as a security guard at a facility that has houses or if you're working at a large industrial area that has facilities that aren't cleaned properly and it's your job to patrol this large industrial facility, or you work in an outdoor environment, you're going to want boots. Unless you're working inside of a controlled environment like an office building or a mall, you're going to want heavy, thick leather boots with a heavy sole. I prefer stitch-down boots like these. These are Bates Durashocks. Don't worry about what the brand is. What's important is that it gives you protection in your shank, so if you step on something, it won't go through the boot, that you have heavy leather protection over your foot. I don't think steel toe boxes are entirely necessary for our purpose, but they really can't hurt. We're more worried about things coming up through the boot or kicking the side of them than something falling on our foot inside of an abandoned building, and that they provide ankle support so we don't roll our ankles. Now, moving from the outside into the house, we have to deal with wooden porches at a lot of these places, and that's what I'll show a little clip of up here. The wooden porch is a problem for a variety of reasons. One is that we're not all small gentlemen, and if you get a couple of dudes going into an abandoned house, which you're going to want if you're searching the inside of it, you're going to have a problem with the weight on the porch, and the porch possibly collapsing or somebody going through the floor, which could result in injuries that we don't want. Injuries that don't give us anything are the worst type of injuries that we can possibly have. There's no reason for falling through a porch. So be careful when you're stepping up on porches that you test them first with your foot, like I show in the video, before you get up onto the porch to make sure that you're not going to fall through. I like to test in the part that looks the weakest when I first approach the porch or when I'm going inside. Go slow. There's normally not a lot of exigent emergencies going on with having to get inside of an abandoned house. It's in your best interest to take it slow. Now, once you get to an interior portion of the house, another physical concern that we have is the same thing as the windows and the walls rotting through and the roof rotting through, is when water starts getting inside, you start seeing holes in the floor. Now, it's hard to get video inside of these places, and we'll talk about that concern in a second under physical concerns. So I'm going to show a couple of pictures up here. Now, these pictures pretty clearly show the size and level of holes that you can have in the floor. Now, this house I happen to know has been abandoned for at least 5 years. That's how quickly this goes completely belly up on you. The insides of buildings. In 5-6 years, they just start rotting apart, especially if they weren't taken care of to start. Getting on to what I was just talking about, the interiors of abandoned houses are generally pretty dark because most of them have been boarded up after the first couple of times that they've had an issue with someone breaking in or a window getting broken. The company's first response is to come board the windows up on the house or on the building or whatever other facility it might be. When you board up a building, one thing people don't think about is when you go inside now, even if you're working on a bright summer day where there's plenty of light outside, as soon as you get inside, there's no light. And if you want to see something really creepy, something that'll make your blood crawl, going inside an abandoned building that's been burnt, where the entire inside of the building is black from soot, is like the worst thing ever as far as lighting is concerned. You can easily trip over things. It's hard just to see. And then when you board that up and your only source of light is a flashlight, that's a good time to have something that kicks out those 600 lumens or 300 lumens. I went inside an abandoned house recently that was burnt up with this 250 lumen stream light, and that was enough to make me think, I might want to get a brighter light. It was that bad inside. 250 lumens, and I couldn't see inside the building because all I would get is one little area of spot that this was putting out enough light for me to see what I was looking at. Of course, burnt buildings also have more problems with floors falling through, and you can't necessarily see them the same way you would see the rot with wood and with other structures when it's just water damage. Speaking of water, these two issues kind of go together. Abandoned buildings, the sump pumps don't generally work, the sewage systems a lot of times weren't maintained, and so they can have problems with flooding. Now, flooding is a particular issue, especially if no one ever bothered to turn the electricity off, or you have some homeless people inside who have jury-rigged the electricity on, and now you've got water in a basement or a sub-basement or in a crawl space that you might have to go sticking your head into or sticking your whole body into that's been commingled with the electricity that's still on in the building. The circuit breakers and fuses aren't always a really good safety measure when you're talking about an abandoned house. I found buildings where people have taken the old fuses out and shoved pennies into the fuse box to keep the power running all the time. Beyond water just getting into the building, when you have water in a building over a long period of time, what you get is a variety of environmental concerns, especially when the building has been open and no one has bothered to board it back up. The first concern that you get is mold, and that's kind of a nasty one because you don't want to be taking that home. You have black mold, I'll show a picture up here, maybe some video if it came out, that often you'll find inside of abandoned structures of all types. Another issue that you get is dead animals in various states of decay. Now I'll leave those pictures out because I'm pretty sure YouTube wouldn't like them very much. But when you have an abandoned building and people have left food inside of it and there's some level of protection from the elements, and there's a source of water like a flooded basement, very often you get animals that just live inside. It's almost the perfect place for a raccoon or a possum or squirrels or rats to live in. Not so much concerned with finding an animal inside of an abandoned house. I found live animals inside abandoned houses, and most of the time any wild animals or feral cats that are inside don't want anything to do with you. In the worst case scenarios, you get a little startled by them. But it's the dead animals that you don't see and end up stepping on that end up being a problem. Again, boots and having to do with animals and mold, you want to get some bleach. Just like the handcuffs video, bleach is our friend when it comes to not getting sick on the job. You take a tray or a small, maybe a Tupperware container or a tote, you put a little bleach in it, mix a little water in, and you step in it before you even go back home. A lot of guys I know just leave their boots in their garage and wear gym shoes into the garage before they go to work and put the boots on, or they leave their boots and their other equipment at work. We can talk more about those options later, but what's important to remember, when you go inside an abandoned house, there is going to be nasty stuff on your boots that you don't want to walking across the carpet in your living room. In that same vein, anytime that we are required to spend any amount of time inside of an abandoned house, or we have to process a scene inside any type of abandoned building, we're going to want to wear rubber gloves when we touch most of things that are inside. But as a general procedural issue, a good thing to have and to be wearing when you're entering inside of any type of abandoned building, because of all the different hazards that we've dealt with so far, is a good set of duty gloves. I prefer leather gloves with some sort of Kevlar or spectral liner inside. I've got videos on several different types of duty gloves. You can find them up here in this corner. These will protect you against most of the issues with sharp objects inside of the buildings, exposed nails, exposed wires, things like that. It allows a slight amount of electrical protection in case you should hit it in an area that's protected by the leather and you have enough standoff distance and the voltage is low enough. And it'll give you some protection against the gooey stuff. Worst case scenario, these are expensive, but they are disposable. When you work in public safety, everything eventually is disposable because very little lasts a 25-year career. So even considering all of that, probably the most important thing to keep you safe when dealing with abandoned houses is the most important thing to keep you safe in any situation, whether you're a police officer, firefighter, EMS, security guard, or you work as a camp ranger somewhere, or you're a public health worker, or you work for an inspectional services division of a city or a town or a county, or you're a building inspector, any type of job like that that requires you to come to these abandoned buildings. And for most of the problems inherent in those jobs, the big thing is keeping your head about you and not just having a flow chart that you go through when you deal with the situation. You have to be able to adapt the situation that you're in and adjust to new problems and new safety concerns that are involved with it. So keep that in mind when you have to deal with abandoned buildings from now on. I've got a lot more stuff coming down the pipe. This is just one that it's long overdue, and we're going to see if we can get some more safety concern videos out there, because a lot of this stuff, I'm getting good feedback from people that are in the field who've never heard about some of these things. Well, if you like that video, go ahead and subscribe, because there's a whole lot more to come. As soon as I finish up these calls, go 10-8. County 291. 291. In the near future, we're going to be looking at using a large flashlight, specifically the large mag lights that are very popular still, with a firearm. There's a lot of techniques that are involved with using those large flashlights for police and security work that are kind of disappearing from the public knowledge, and we'd like to keep those around. I'm still trying to figure out how to do report writing properly. I'd like to get that done because that's a very, very requested item. Also, I've got a section that I'm typing some stuff up on now called So You Want to Be a Cop, to address all the people that have been asking about, well, I'm 15, I'm 16, I'm 17, I'm whatever age, and I want to be a police officer in the future, and what can I do to get myself down the right path for that? And I also have a company that said they are going to send me some stuff to review, so we'll see if it's any good, and either way, I'll let you know how it turns out. See you guys next time.